What's good, everybody? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Can I get an amen? Fantastic to have you guys with us here on a Friday Eve edition of the show. Listen, Thursday is the beginning of the weekend for adults, and we here at Odyssey know how to party, my friends. Had a little company get-together today from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Want to give a big-time shout-out to Spare Time Entertainment for having us out there today. It was a fantastic time.
Love that spot.
Everyone had a blast. I want to open.
You should open with the scores.
Yeah, I want to open with the scores. Okay, I definitely want to open with the scores because there is a bit of a dispute here in the network studios as to how to perceive what went down. So, as is always the case, guys. And as you're going to see, you guys are going to have a significant voice on the show today. A significant voice on the show today. All right. So we want to know what you're thinking. Tell me what's on your mind. No. So the first game that we all played, okay, we ended up on different lanes, but we were all playing simultaneously. And much to the surprise of many, okay, but not to the surprise of one, I won. I had the highest score in the game that I was in a game that featured our bosses, management, promotion, etc. I had a score of 156 in bowling, okay? On the lane next to me, a round of three people, Diesel had a 114 and Rob had a 139. Lonzo, a couple lanes down, had a 133. So in the one game that all of us played together simultaneously, the pressure of your comrades standing up in the lanes next to you.
So Spur Daddy's already calling BS on this, Mark. I already posted in the YouTube chat. I said, watch. Mark is going to try to spin this to say he won.
Well, no.
And Spur Daddy is saying he is quite the BSer.
Well, I'm gonna share this with you guys. Okay, so you guys tell us who won. Okay, if there is a winner. So the first game we all played together, and
we didn't play together. We all played on different lanes, starting at different times. You got there before everyone else did. You were 6 frames into your first game by the time I walked through the door.
Right, and your game still ended before mine did. Okay, so anyway, 156 for me, 114 for Diesel, 104 for Rob, and 133 for Lonzo. Okay, then because we knew the event was going to end at 1:30, and our first game ended at 1:01. It was an hour and 10 minutes.
Your first game, Mark, ended at 11:55. Your game was basically over when I was getting started with my game. No.
Yeah.
No, they played multiple games. You just got a good score and you walked away. So you could say, see, I got a good score. I'm done. I'm done with this.
This is all false lies and propaganda, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you
Who do you believe?
Let me tell you what actually happened. So I look at my clock when our game is over and it says 1:01. And I'm like, this thing ends at 1:30. So then they start playing a second game, and I deny that I turned down the chance to play a second game because I'm like, they're not going to finish the game. And,
also not true.
And then what happens is, Diesel,
patently false.
No, they cut the game in their 6th frame. Spare Time cut the game in their 6th frame.
That was their third game.
No, that was their second game. Their second game, they cut the game in their 6th
Mine
frame.
and Rob and I played 2 full games, right. And then there was another 30 minutes or so after we were done.
But the big group that we had 6 people in it. They didn't get through their second game. Ask them. They didn't get through their second game.
Well, that's because you guys couldn't stop BSing long enough to actually bowl a game.
So here is the reality of the situation, folks. Diesel played 2 games, and in Diesel's second game, he scored the highest among the group. Everybody scored higher in their second game than they did their first. In the first game that we were all playing together, I blew everyone out of the water. Like I literally depantsed them.
You finished your first game before Lonzo even got there.
To the point where, their wives and children don't even recognize them anymore. So the question is, ladies and gentlemen, who won?
Scoreboard.
Who won?
All I have to say, Mark, is scoreboard.
Yeah, I got the scoreboard right here.
Yeah, I got it right here as well that says I had a higher score than you.
Well, in 2 games.
It's not my fault you quit. It's not my fault you walked away and stopped playing.
Well, they didn't play a second game. They didn't finish the second game.
Well, you could have jumped in and played a game anywhere. We literally had like 10 lanes to get out and play. You got your good score and you said, I'm done. You could have, if you wanted to, Mark. You could have gone out and bowled a second game to see if you could improve on your 156. Is that what it was? 156?
Well, 156.
Yeah, you could have seen like, hey, maybe I could score a 162.
Well, let's
I can improve on this.
Let's average your 2 scores. Okay?
Oh, okay.
You got 114 and 166, so that would be a 180. Your average is 140. I had 156.
So we need the texters, we need the YouTube commenters to decide on this. How are we deciding who scored the highest of the day? Single game highest score
of the day.
Single game highest score or average of your games.
Yeah, Diesel, like I said before I got there, I got to be out of here at 1:30 because legit, man, I had no prep done for the show today.
Shocker.
Legit.
Yeah.
No prep done for the show.
Who's surprised by that?
So legit. And so I'm like, I had an appointment before the party today. I'm running to the party. I'm like, I got to get out of here at 1:30 so I can be to the building by 2. And so I can get an hour of prep in for the show. And so this show can be great and up to the standards that everyone expects. And so I said, okay, this thing is 11:30 to 1:30. And I'm going to be there 11:30 to 1:30. And I'm going to kick ass and I'm going to take names. And ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to say
you spent more time flapping your jaw than you did bowling.
We have achieved all of our goals here. We have achieved all of our goals here.
Spur Daddy, we need you to weigh in on this. We need you to answer the question. How are we deciding who won this? Highest single game score or average scores? Because I think Mark should get a 0. His name was on the board for his second game, and then he just didn't show up to bowl, so they took him off the game, which means you average somewhere near a 75.
Well, wait a minute, Diesel, because what time was it? It was 1:30. What time are we on the air?
They played 3 games. You walked away and refused to bowl the second game with 2 out with over an hour to go. Well, you walked away.
The first game ended at 1:01. You can dispute
it did
that.
not.
You can dispute that.
It did not.
Game ended at 1:01. All right. So that's the way that it is, folks. I played 1 game, beat everybody. Everybody played a second game except me because I'm a responsible adult who has to get ready for the show today. And everybody got a higher score their second game. But in the game we all played together, I retire as the champion of Odyssey.
So this is an important question here. A texter just asked, did Offsides beat the Rob Brown show? The answer is yes.
We did.
Yes.
We did. And if you want to go by the high score that Diesel's going by, Offsides beats the Rob Brown show in high score. And Offsides beat the Rob Brown show in average score. So and I will say, Diesel, you and I are trading barbs here in the first segment. They are the bowling show. That's what they do.
Yeah.
Like they're the type of cats that bring their own bowling balls, which is a party foul, which is like, we've been over this. If you have like a group putt-putt session, if you're playing mini golf, you don't get to bring your own putter to mini golf. You use the putters that are there at Frankie's Fun Park, okay? Everybody's got to play by the same rules. If you go to bowling with your, like my favorite thing in the world is when the dude that brings his own ball and his own shoes and his own shirt, my favorite thing in the world is when that guy wears the L, okay? And Lonzo brought his own ball today and lost. Yeah.
And God, like Lonzo was throwing bazooka strikes down the lanes. I heard this boom out of nowhere. I turn and I look and it's Lonzo, and he's got his knee brace on. I think that is an illegal enhancement to his bowling game because man, that dude was throwing rocket shots down the lanes. Let's see. Spur Daddy says so. Mark only bowled 1 game. So you have to go by overall average of all games. So Mark gets the score for the first game and a 0 for his
Yeah, but
second.
I bowled one
Since he
game.
didn't bowl,
No, I
Diesel
bowled-
wins.
No, I bowled
I
one
like
game.
I like you, Spur Daddy.
Wait a minute, Spur Daddy.
I knew I
You
liked
just said
you.
I bowled one game. So how do I get a 0 for the second when Spur Daddy? Let me say this: nobody finished their second game on my lane. Nobody. They cut the.
Yes,
score.
they did.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
Diesel, ask
Yes.
anybody that played
Yes,
on the
they
lane.
did.
They cut the scores at the 6th frame. I'm
No,
standing
they
right
kept
there.
they kept playing and playing and playing. You walked away.
Yeah. They cut,
T Experience here agrees. It says take his 156 and divide by 2 games. Thank you, T Experience.
Yeah, T Experience. T Experience. No one finished their second game in my lane. Ask them. The party ended at 1:30. Okay, so it didn't even happen. So you average my score for 1 game versus Diesel's for 2.
Texter here
That's
says,
simple.
Mark, I bring my own balls everywhere I go.
Well, that's a heck of an attack. Heck of an accomplishment.
Thank you, Texter.
Heck of an accomplishment.
Michigan J. Todd asks, was your company get together open bar? As a matter of fact, yes, it was.
Oh, it was.
Yes, it was.
Of course.
Full spread of food. Everything they do over there at Spare Time is top notch. The pizza, the sliders, the calabash chicken tenders, everything was delicious.
Oh, it was. But the most delicious thing was beating everybody at the Fan Upstate in the one game that we all had head to head. So that is
Well, technically, we didn't play any games head to head. We all played at least one game, but we didn't play any games head to head. So you have to go by single game high score. Ergo, I win.
Yeah, well, if somebody else had 2 games to play, maybe I would have had high score as well. Let's go. You guys see here the dispute, and this is why station events are always so much fun, because what you can see is there's always a dispute, and the people who lose the first game are hell-bent on having something to claim on.
This is why you can't let Mark get the first and the last word, because he will always lie through his teeth to try to spin it in a way that makes it look like he won, even though he clearly did not.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's great. This is great. It's always a fun time.
By the way, those of you watching on the stream, Spur Daddy and Mad Craft, what do you think about the new digs here in the studio? We had our good friends over at Furman send us some new goodies for the studio, and I think it looks great. I've got a big Furman football flag over my head, even though I'm an App State Mountaineer. I know who butters our bread around here, so I put this on the wall behind me, and over Mark's shoulders, we've got the Furman soccer scarves with Furman Paladins on one side. They're double-sided. You turn it over, and it says, what does it say? It says All Din. And, man, I think these things look great in here. Look great. So thank you to Furman. Thank you to the Greenville Triumph. Thank you for the Greenville Liberty for the things that they sent in. Man, this place is looking good. We even got some USC Upstate representation over my left shoulder.
Yeah, we got the flags showing up. Everything is coming in nicely here. The whole studio is getting decked out, and this place is absolutely positively fantastic. 844-FAN phone is the number. That's 844-326-3663 is the number to get to us on the show. You can get to us on the text line at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. Coming up on the show today, what is the best NASCAR point system possible? What is the best movie ever made about your profession? The Upstate's favorite athlete nominations kick off at 4 p.m. We've got Kelly Ford joining us on Inside College Football at 4:40 p.m. We've got the top 5 at 5. We've got Truth Serum, and we have you here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere on the show today. All right, folks, coming up next on the show, I'm going to paint a picture to you about a specific scenario, and I need you to tell me how this particular scenario would change your life. That's next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Wonderful to have you guys with us here on a Friday Eve edition of the show. Truly do appreciate it. Head is having a hard time fitting into the door today after my domination.
After your second place finish?
After the domination. You
should be happy. Didn't the P1s pick you to the Offsiders pick you to finish fourth?
Yeah, well, I won the game we all played together. So it's
we didn't play any games together. So you're just making things up.
That's it. There we go. There will always be disputes, ladies and gentlemen, no matter what you do. You know, it's funny. I was on the phone with my wife, and I'm like, babe, you're gonna want to listen to the first segment of the show. If I know Diesel, I know we're gonna have it out over the bowling. And she goes, you tell Diesel that if not everybody finished two games, then the second game doesn't count for those who.
If you didn't roll a second game, then you get a 0 for the second game.
Okay.
So it brings your average down to a 75.
I just needed a 124 to beat you for the average in the second game. So that would have been a piece of cake, Diesel. 156 in game one. Fantastic to have you guys with us. Always do appreciate you guys chiming in and participating on all that we do here on the show. So I have a question for you guys here on the Open. And that is, I was thinking about this today. In areas like this, where, it's obvious that Diesel and I see the numbers, maybe you guys can understand what this is and what this isn't. Some of you guys criticize this show for, Mark Ryan, you bait people. You just say things to get clicks. You just say things to get reactions. You just do this and you just do that, right? Well, the reality is this, folks. We will do on this show whatever it takes to be successful. Whatever it takes, okay? Like, that is the MO. I don't dictate the content of this show. I mean, well, we do, but what we do is we study what works, and then we do that, okay? Like, we study, we discuss, and Diesel and I will go through the posts that are engaged with the most, the content that is engaged with the most, the content that gets the highest ratings across the board. And it'll be something like this, folks. It'll be like, okay, like Diesel, tell me the top 8 downloadable content pieces for the month. And it'll be like, South Carolina's going to beat Clemson for the next 3 years. And Dabo's in danger of losing recruiting class ranking to
I got you right here. Okay. I got you right here. Going back into last month, Mark, which we had a really good download month last month. Number 1, 3 predictions for Clemson and South Carolina athletics over the next 3 seasons. Number 2, why is ESPN powerless to keep or stop the 7 from leaving the ACC? Number 3, 2 out of 3 Palmetto teams advance in their regionals. So said Chris Phillips, and shocker, Clemson was the one he said would not advance. Number 4, Clemson is favored in every game they play this season. Number 5, Gamecocks football, a constant top 25 team, question mark. The next one, recruiting and retention secrets of Landon Powell. The next one, 5-star Clemson commit, Heaven Brown Schuler interview. The next one, what Cade Klubnik needs to achieve to be on Clemson's quarterback medal stand. And finally, dig on Clemson or dig on South Carolina. It was, I believe it was the clip from Booger McFarland about Clemson making it back to the playoffs this year.
So you guys see how this works, right?
9 out of our top 10 were Clemson or South Carolina.
We're not dumb. Okay, so like some of you, I don't dispute that at all. You guys know the whole saying, right? You can please all the people some of the time, some of the people all the time, but you can't please all the people all the time. When we get those texts, those comments, those tweets that say, all you guys do is press buttons of Clemson and South Carolina. You know what I say to you? Yeah, have you seen the numbers? Have you seen the numbers? Have you seen like what works and what, and how we want to be successful here? Right. And how we have been successful here and how like we want to continue to do what works. Like earlier this year, I got into an argument with somebody else who works in this business. And he was telling me like, I don't like what you do, Mark Ryan. It was like somebody that works in our industry. And I said to him, I will do whatever it takes to be successful. whatever it takes. So when we have the data of what works, right, and we see what connects with the audience, what Diesel and I spend our time doing is figuring out what are the different and creative ways we can talk about the topics that garner the most interest, that garner the greatest amount of engagement. All right? Because you guys know what you engage with, and we have the data that shows you what we've engaged with. You just heard from Diesel. 9 of the top 10 pieces that we have for the last month of April, which is about as middle of the off season as you could get. April is the dog days of summer for us because June and July is getting close to football season. 9 of the top 10 podcasts we had, downloadable content pieces we had, were Clemson and South Carolina football in April. And again, hey man, where's my Braves breakdown?
No, that was May, by the way.
May?
That was May.
Where is our Swamp Rabbits discussion? It's here, and we work it in, right? We do. But in the end, you got to know where your bread is buttered in terms of downloadable content. So I was thinking about this today, and I was wondering because I don't know what this is like. I can't relate. All I can do is relate from a Florida State perspective. And I was thinking about this from a Clemson and South Carolina perspective today. And it was the fact that South Carolina beat Clemson in football this year, 31-30. And I was curious because I remember living in Florida, and I remember witnessing how my life changed when Florida State went on a run, when Florida went on a run. I always tried to make myself wear Florida gear, whether it was rain or shine, because I didn't want to be that guy that only rocked the orange and blue, which is a bad color scheme, by the way. I didn't want to be that guy that only rocked it when the times were good. You have the right to bag on me when times are bad. You do. But I can tell you that, being in a Florida State area, it was a little bit tenuous, to say the least, when Florida State had the upper hand. And so my question to you guys is this. If the rivalry, you're getting a small taste this year of what it would be like if the rivalry shifted, okay? You're getting a small taste of that. You're getting an appetizer. What if Beamer goes on a run here? And my question to you is, how would your life change if that did happen? What would be the visible changes in your life if the balance of power shifted and the Gamecocks were still the top dog in the state? Now, Diesel, I don't remember the specific criteria, but I believe we were close, but we had slightly different criteria. I said that if Beamer wins 3 games in 5 years, then South Carolina runs the state. Okay? They have the belt right now, but they don't run the state because of the history. What they did
takes more than once.
Yeah, what they did was they were essentially Joe Frazier beating Muhammad Ali once. Does anybody consider Frazier a better boxer than Muhammad Ali? No, not a single person does. But Frazier did beat Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali got him multiple times, and so Muhammad Ali is the better boxer. How does your life change? What is your criteria, Diesel, for running the state? Mine was 3 times in 5 years. What was yours?
I want to say I agreed with 3 out of 5. We had a different criteria when it came to what constitutes a dynasty. But I think 3 out of 5, or 3 in a row, makes you run the state. And it's a rolling 3-year average, right? It's a rolling period. You can't say, well, from 2020 through 2023 or 2022, we won 2 and then we lost 2 and then we won 1. No, you got to win 2 out of 3, or you got to win 3 in a row.
Okay. So
no, 3 out of 5, excuse me. 3 out of 5 or 3 in a row.
So you're hearing Diesel's criteria. My criteria is 3 out of 5. All right. I don't know that you can win 3 in a row in this rivalry, especially from the Gamecock perspective. But if Shane Beamer wins twice in the next 4 seasons, and he'll have 2 home games in the next 4 seasons, 3 times in any 5-year period, and you officially run the state until you no longer have won 3 in 5 years. That, to me, has got to be the criteria, because that is over a significant period of time. You know, this is my 5th year in the Upstate. This year's Palmetto Bowl will be my 5th Palmetto Bowl.
It's all about sample size. Sample size matters in determining who runs the state.
It does. So what do you guys say? And I'm curious, like, if you are a Clemson fan and South Carolina were to win 3 out of 5, how does your life change as a result of that? Does it change? Does it not change at all? Is it irrelevant to how you go about your day-to-day business? Methinks the following, my friends. If you are one of those people who says your life does not change as a result of a football game, and you call yourself part of the rivalry, I think you're lying. I don't think you're being truthful about this at all. I think your life does change. And if you are a Clemson fan, I think you got a not so tasty glimpse of what that changed life would look like when South Carolina punked you the way that they did at the end of November.
Man, Gamecock fans with their bristles up, with their, piss and vinegar up, feeling good about themselves, that's a scary fan base. It's a scary fan base.
It is. And so, I'm asking you guys, if this thing changed, if this thing flipped, whether you're a Gamecock and the rivalry flipped in your direction and you didn't just have a blip on the score sheet, which is what winning 1 is, but you had the trend of winning 3 times in 5 years, would it change your life in any way, shape, or form? Now, you might say, well, Mark, if I admit that, I'm admitting that my priorities are out of line. And I don't want to admit that my priorities are out of line. I got news for you. Your priorities are already out of line. Okay? SEC's slogan, "It just means more," tells you their priorities are out of line. Where we live, okay? Rate of heart disease, highest in the nation. Education rates, lowest in the nation. Obesity rates, highest in the nation.
Bunch of big dumb fatties around here.
Your priorities are already out of line, okay? We've established that your priorities are already out of line. Don't feel bad. My priorities are out of line, okay? When my team, Florida, gets skunked by Florida State over a period of years, fair or not, folks, I'll admit this to you, my overall self-confidence takes a hit.
Spur Daddy says, you weren't here, Mark, when Gamecocks won 5 in a row. All Gamecock fans heard the whole time was, we've still won more games overall. So says Spur Daddy. Spur Daddy, that's called cope. That's what the kids these days are calling cope. You got to cope with the realization that you're not hot bleep anymore. So you got to lie to yourself. You got to throw whatever stats out there. It's exactly how Mark coped with not getting the high score in bowling today by changing the subject, swerving it over here just a little bit in a way that makes him look better.
I love Diesel claiming the high score when he played twice as many games that I did, because our bowling lane had 6 people playing in it and the game took an hour. Yeah, I love that. It's a changing narrative. Diesel, you and I are doing our version of a Meatball Ron and Donald Trump today. It's all whatever narrative fits you better, right? That's exactly what we're doing here today. I have some numbers over here that look good for me. You have some numbers over here that look good for you. Hey, let's pick the number that we like and let's roll with that one, my friends. 71307 on the text line. So I ask you this not only from a Clemson and South Carolina perspective, whomever it is that is your rival, okay? If the rival, like if you're on the downside of a rivalry right now, if you're a Michigan or Ohio State fan, right? Michigan J. Todd was on the wrong side of the rivalry with Ohio State for how many years in a row? 6? Was it 8? 6 years in a row? Something like that. Now it's shifting, right? Now Michigan's won 2 in a row. To run the rivalry, you only need to win one of the next three. When you get the taste of that, my friends, does it change your life in any way, shape, or form? Diesel, when App State takes 3 out of 5 from Southern, does it change your life in any way? Or when Southern takes 3 out of 5 from App State, does it change your life in any way?
It makes me feel better about myself or a little worse about myself, but it doesn't change my day-to-day actions.
Okay. Doesn't change my day-to-day actions. I would say that. I still wear what I'm going to wear. It doesn't change that, but I will tell you, my self-confidence does take a hit. And it's because it carries too much weight with me. It's because my priorities are a little bit out of whack. It's because I have so much passion poured into the sport that is college football that I struggle with self-confidence if Florida State is dominating the Gators each and every year. Now, it's a little embarrassing, folks, to admit that this show is going to be better if Florida State doesn't run off 4 games in a row against the Gators. This show is going to be better because my self-confidence will be higher if Florida State isn't dominating me.
To your point, my self-confidence was never as high as after App State beat A&M and then won hosting College game day on a Hail Mary in week 3 of last season. Then it took a huge nosedive when the season went awry and the team finished 6-6. Just a huge nosedive. The only saving grace is we had the best baseball record we've had in a decade, so back up.
Yeah, but the saving grace too, Diesel, is you at least had the memory of hosting College game day.
Yeah.
Right? Like there were, how many teams never have a high point like that in their season? And like you could look back at your season through a negative lens and say, well, it was all for naught. Look what happened. No, like at one point you were hosting College game day at Appalachian State, who were extolling the virtues of Boone, North Carolina, all across this great land, right? And that is a permanent self-esteem boost.
The university claims some exorbitant number, like massive number in advertising dollar value of hosting College game day. Like they claimed that hosting game day was worth $30 million of advertising to the university. Now, they did say, and I believe this is true for every small school that hosts game day and looks good on it, they see a massive spike in applications, which means if they grow the university by a couple hundred students, you could put the value of all those couple hundred students' tuition into, well, this is advertising. This is the result of advertising. You know, if you've got 500 students you added who are paying $10,000 a year in tuition, somebody help me out with the math here. That's value to the university. That's cash in hand that would not have been in hand otherwise.
Texter says, as a Gamecock fan, I would be walking around like the big rooster mascot with Spurs if Beamer goes on a run against the Tigers. You weren't here when the Gamecocks won 5 in a row. All Gamecock fans heard the whole time was, we've still won more games overall. Okay, let me defend Gamecock fans here because that's lame. You've still won more games overall. Okay?
This is a what have you done for me lately?
What matters is what you're doing now. Okay? That's what matters. What matters second most is what you've done in the 21st century. What matters last is the all-time record. All right? But I know that you fans will turn to something, right? Texter says neither Gamecock nor Tiger fans know what winning 3 out of 5 is like. Carolina went on a 5-game winning streak. Clemson went on a 7-game streak. Now it's at 1. The 7-game streak plus the 1 year off for COVID sucked as a Gamecock fan. I've always worn my gear no matter what. And I got the Snickers. There's nothing worse than the Snickers, is there? There's nothing. I got the Snickers from the orange-clad fans a lot during the 7-year streak. Mark, you should have seen all of us Gamecock fans from 2009 to 2013. We all walked around like the mascot on our logo, strutting our stuff. You know, I know that this is an uncomfortable question to ask, and Clemson fans are going to want to exist in a state of denial about this because, Mark, it's never going to happen. Our lives are not going to change. If South Carolina goes on another run How does your life change at all? How was your life different when Spurrier won 5 in a row? Was it different in any way, shape, or form? If I ask you guys the question, what are you most passionate about in your life? You might say God first. You might say your family second. And you're probably going to say your football team third.
Think about this, Mark. There's a lot of people out there who are Clemson fans who work with Gamecock fans who have been able to hold it over their heads for a very long time. How much better Clemson has been over the past 7 years in a row. Not this past year withstanding. There were Gamecock fans who for 5 years in a row got to hold that over their Clemson coworkers' heads. Things could shift back the other direction. And all you, like anytime football is brought up, you sort of, lean back in your chair, you get a little smile on your face, you puff your chests out just a little bit because you're feeling good about yourself. That could change. And that changes a workplace dynamic. It really does.
It does. No, let me tell you, man, it really does. And fortunately for us, like among the 4 full-time people at the Fan Upstate, Lonzo is the only person who is at least openly for one side of the rivalry and against the other side of the rivalry, right? Diesel's grandfather played for Clemson, right? I have no skin in the game either way. Rob's fiance is a huge Gamecock fan, but Rob is a Florida State LSU guy. I'm a Florida Gator. But I can tell you, it was hilarious hosting with Lonzo when South Carolina would lose to Clemson. It was hilarious because he couldn't hide how unhappy it made him. And so, if you're telling me, well, Mark, if my side of the rivalry takes the L for a few years, I'm a Clemson fan. If we lose 4 years in a row, it's not going to affect me.
BS.
I call BS because I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen it. I've seen how crabby Lonzo was after South Carolina lost to Clemson. 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us. Coming up next on the show, what would be the very best NASCAR points system? That's next. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. And we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Happy to have you guys with us on a Friday Eve edition of the show. So I owe you guys an apology. Okay, I do. Because a couple of weeks back, we did a topic here locally. We did it on CBS Sports Radio as well. Great response to the topic. Incidentally, guys, programming reminder, I'll be on CBS Sports Radio again this coming Saturday, June 3rd, from 5 to 10 p.m. The entire show can be heard right here on the Fan Upstate. Always have the local text line open for you guys, and I always get to the text that you send me on the national show. So if you want to listen to the national show, you can do so right here on the Fan Upstate this Saturday from 5 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Man, it is such a thrill. It is such an honor. But I owe you an apology for this. When we were speaking about what are the issues with NASCAR, I was looking at really big picture stuff. And when I was delving into what are the issues with NASCAR, why is it no longer what it used to be? Why have the number of people watching the Daytona 500 dipped from 20 million in 2006 to 8 million in 2022? And we're going through all the different reasons. And my apology is for the fact that I did that whole segment not being able to explain the ins and outs to you of how the current point system works with NASCAR. And therefore, as a result of that oversight by me, I missed the biggest problem with NASCAR that exists today. Do you guys understand how much of a freaking joke this system is of determining who makes the playoffs, of determining who advances in this sport? Like, on any list of problems, and I gave you like 6 or 7 or 8 of them because I read 6 or 7 or 8 articles, and I any point that was a criticism of NASCAR that stuck out to me, I ran with it, but I didn't take the time at the time to study how the point system works. Listen to this. Anybody who wins one of the first 26 races of the year makes it to the playoffs. Anybody who wins one of the first, it's
an automatic qualifier for the playoff.
Essentially. Yeah. If you are, so there's 16 guys who make the playoffs. And if there's 16 guys who win a race, 16 different guys who win at least one race among the first 26, Diesel, they all make the playoffs.
What if there's 17 guys that win a race?
I'm so glad that you asked that. You have to remain inside the top 30 in points. And if there's 17 winners, the lowest person among them in the standings would be bumped out. So in 26 races, if there's 17 different winners, right, then the lowest ranked among the 26. But Diesel, that's the only time the points come into play, is if you have 17 different winners in 26 races. Oh, I'm last in points, so now I'm bumped out of the playoffs. This is literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. It is so JV, it is not even funny. And guys, if you're a NASCAR fan, if you're a NASCAR P1, please help me understand if I am assessing this correctly. Okay? Like, essentially, Diesel, I could win the third race of the year and then get last place in every other race. And guess who's in the playoffs, baby? What is the incentive to give your best week in and week out? You're only showing up for races after you've won a race because you have to, because you have a sponsor, because you're contractually obligated. You win the 4th, 5th, 6th race of the year, you're in, baby. You're in. And if 17 different racers win a race among the first 26 races of the year, then all you have to do is not be last in the point standings. They do the point standings. First place gets 5 points more than second place, and then every other place gets 1 point less. So third place gets 1 point less than second. Fourth place gets 1 point less than third. This is literally the dumbest point system I have ever heard in my life, that in no way encourages or promotes consistency. Okay? It like, you don't have to be good over a period of time. You can have a blip, you can have a fluke, and you are in the playoff. How on earth does that crown or reward the best driver? Am I right on this, guys? Am I assessing this correctly?
It's entirely convoluted. Entirely convoluted. Doesn't make a single bit of sense. How are fans supposed to know? It's way too complicated.
Right. Now also they award points for qualification, which is really weird. Now you can go from months-long slump to instant title contender. Like, you could suck all year, win a race right at the end of the year, and guess who's in the playoffs? Never thought that would happen, right? And you say, well, Mark Ryan, isn't college basketball kind of the same? You could suck all year, win your conference tournament, make it to March Madness. You can. And a lot of people like Bob Ritchie, the head coach of Furman basketball, have a problem with that. They don't think that's the right way to go about this thing, right? Every regular season winner who is a full-time driver has made the playoffs that won a race. So if you won a single race, you have made the playoffs. Through 8 seasons of this format, there's a 100% success rate for anyone who wins just one race during the first 26 races. Now, I have no problem with you making the playoff if you win one race out of 26. But that should be determined by your point standings. You won one race, but you got second in 3 others. You were in the top 10 in 20 of the 26 races. You know, like, your overall standings. Are you generally good at what you do? You know, guys, there's a lot of hosts out there who can put together a good segment, right? But that doesn't mean they're going to be delivering consistently good shows, which is why 3 years ago, when I was part of the hiring process for the job that Rob Brown ultimately got, anybody that was interested in the show, I said, what time are you on? I'm going to listen in. What time are you on? When is your show during the week? Okay. And I listened in randomly. They didn't know when I was going to be listening in. And I wanted to hear what they sounded like day in and day out, because anybody can have a stupid highlight reel, Diesel. A stupid highlight reel doesn't tell me bleep. It doesn't tell me who's the best at this, who's the best at that. Here, send me your highlight reel. I hope I get the job. Doesn't tell me squat. Here's my 5 minutes of best work. Doesn't tell me squat. Doesn't tell me a hill of freaking beans, right?
All it shows is you have the ability to edit down your crap to make it sound better.
And that's what the NASCAR point system is. Hey, man, I sucked all year, but I lucked into one race because there was a wreck right in front of me, and I was spit out in front.
I was running 6th, and then 1 through 5 crashed, and now I'm in the playoff.
How does it, guys? Like, am I right on this, guys? I mean, is this how the point system works? Please tell me there's more complexity. There's more nuance to it than this. All you got to do is win a race and suck the rest of the year, and you're in the playoff. Like, on some level, do you have a responsibility to crown the best driver?
It allows you to slump late in the season and still get into the playoff. If you want to race early, you can slump for the rest of the season and still be in the playoff. I mean, Mad Craft here says Kyle Busch broke his leg during the season and somehow still won the championship. I guess he won a race. He was out for a while, qualified for the championship, was healed up enough by that time to win the whole thing.
You want me to tell you if you're a good host or not? Don't send me a highlight reel, okay? We all have 5 good minutes that we can mash together, okay? Every single one of us does. I want to hear what you sound like on a Tuesday in the summer or during the pandemic when there's no sports going on, okay? I want to see what you do on a random day, on a random Sunday in the dog days of summer. You know, like, it matters what you do over the course of the regular season in baseball. You know what I mean? Like, what would that be the equivalent of in MLB? You know, you make the playoffs if you had the best record for 2 weeks. If you had the best record for a month, you make the playoffs. What? In NASCAR, you have to have the best record for a day, and you're in the playoffs. It's senseless. It's literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. All right, folks, check on the text line today, and you guys are filling it up, which is great to see. But coming up next on the show, it is time to take official nominees for our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket. That's next. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. cannot accentuate that enough to you, how much I appreciate you tuning into us day in and day out. It just means the absolute and total world for us. I want to tell you something cool that happened earlier today. So I have, I don't know if you guys realize this, but I've had nothing. Well, there was one thing that was really bad, but I've hit like a bit of a stretch where like my system just feels kind of run down, like I've been on antibiotics 3 times this year already. One was I had a sty on my eye. The next one I had strep throat that became septic in my bloodstream. Missed a week for that in January. And then I've had this recurring sinus infection that's required 2 different doses of antibiotics. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, why? Like, what's happening? So, they did some immune blood tests and things like that. Don't worry, I don't have AIDS, nothing like that. But they go to I go to allergist and immunologist, and they're talking about different ways to like give me a little boost and allergy shots and things like that, just to make me a little bit less susceptible to just being like knocked on my ass, which is what's happened to me a little bit this year. And they're like, what led up to this year? And I was like, well, I moved twice in the month of December. They're like, that'll do it. So anyway, I'm at the allergist office today, folks, and we're about halfway through the appointment, and the allergist is going over the paper. Like my paper, you have to fill out that paperwork when you go to a doctor's office. And he flips it over and he goes, Odyssey host. And he looks at the name and he goes, Mark. And then he goes, Mark Ryan. And it was like halfway through the appointment. I've already been talking to this doctor for 20 minutes. He goes, Mark Ryan. And I said, yes, sir. It's nice to meet you. He goes, well, see, the name on here doesn't say Mark Ryan, but I saw Odyssey host. I saw the name Mark. The voice is unmistakable. He goes, you and Diesel do a fantastic job. He goes, I listen to you as often as I possibly can. And I said, man, that means the world, man. Thank you so much. And I said, what side of the rivalry are you on? And he goes, oh, I'm a Gamecock. And I said, man, tell all your friends I do not hate your team. He goes, no, I actually don't think you hate your team. I actually think you're kind of fair. And I said to him, but I got to be honest with you. I got to tell you this. The bottom 10% of your fan base is the worst portion of any fan base I've ever encountered in now 18 years of working in this business. And he goes, well, you got to remember, Mark, the bottom 10% of the Gamecock fan base had nothing to do with the school. None of those idiots went to the school, right? And they're just out there like getting ejected from the stadium and giving everyone a bad name.
They're called the Walmart fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything they've got that has the logo on it came from the local Walmart.
Yeah. So I said, did you go to South Carolina? He said, yes, I did. My degree's from South Carolina. And he goes, I just want you to know, man, like I saw Odyssey host. I saw the name Mark. I heard the voice. I knew it was you immediately. And you and Diesel do a great job, man. I listen to you guys as often as I can. And it was crazy. So it's like, you're sitting there. And most of the people in the doctor's office have a mask on, so it's not like he can see you, really, right? And recognized us right away, the voice right away. Compliments not only to myself, but also to Diesel for a job well done. And I thought that was great. It's always, like when we're in our day-to-day lives, folks, in this business, we're kind of incognito, like we're it's a faceless, for the most part, it's a faceless medium.
Well, it's getting less and less so.
Yeah,
lately.
That's true.
I mean, we're on YouTube live stream right now.
And I'm still of the old school mindset, Diesel, that when I go out and about, I'm anonymous, I'm unrecognizable. And then something like today happens and you're just sitting in a doctor's office and it's a crazy experience, man. A great experience.
The crazy thing is when you see, for example, I was out at a brewery a couple of months ago, and I saw one of the hosts, one of the anchors from, I believe it was WYFF News, and she's a very trustworthy female. Trustworthy is my code word for attractive, and means I believe everything that they say to me. But she looked even more trustworthy in public, and that's the thing is like she looked good on camera, looks even better in person. We look mediocre on camera. We look even worse in person. How does that happen?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. We do look worse in person, by the way.
It's not good.
I don't. It's not a good look for us. NASCAR Addict tweets into the show. He says, Mark Ryan, fans complained forever that the NASCAR championship was based on half-assing it. They finally changed it, but it leaves no room for winning multiple times versus consistently or both. Well, wait a minute. So before they had a system that didn't reward consistency, and so they switched it to a system where you can suck all year, luck into winning a race, and you're in the playoffs. If you suck all year in Major League Baseball, if you got a record of 35 wins and 115 losses, you can go on a 10-game win streak and make the playoffs. That doesn't even make any sense. It's about consistently being good, or at least it should be. Let's see here. Texter says on the show, South Carolina will always be the little brother to Clemson in football. You may wrestle 8 times and the little brother may get you once, but you still whipped his tail 7 times. Shamecox will always be our little witch slapping boy. Texter says, I work in a group of 4 people at work and the other 3 people are Clemson fans. They don't really acknowledge that they even lost to South Carolina in 2022. That is hilarious, man. So it does affect their life. They still act like they are the top dog. I am proud of the Gamecocks for winning against my Tigers, but that's not a rival any more than USC's rival is Kentucky. So you're saying they haven't earned the right to call it a rivalry yet. Interesting. You've got a different definition of rivalry. Texter says, I think only the winners of each race should qualify for a championship race. If you want it twice, good. That's one less person to have to worry about. Well, isn't that what they're doing? If you have 16 different racers win a race, there are your playoff teams. They're your playoff racers. But you only have to be good 1 week of the year, and you're in the playoff. How does that make any sense? Texter says, the points reason is one of the main reasons I quit following NASCAR as closely as I used to. The point system before the playoffs awarded being consistent. And now it doesn't. Jeff Gordon in the late 90s was the one that drove them to this point system. He would run away with a championship by 300 points by year's end. Yeah, there's not a lot of drama in that, but so what? He's the best guy. It's up to the other racers to create drama. It's not up to you to fabricate it. Right?
Even if you wanted to do it in a system that sort of uses what we have today, where you hit a certain point in the season and then you reset the numbers and these are the drivers that are able, but you got to have a more simplified system, an understandable system, and a system that, as the texter here said, that rewards consistency throughout the season to get you into the playoff. Why not use the old point system to get you into the playoff at whatever point of the season that's going to be, 10 races to go, and then start over fresh from there? And that means you can't use your first 20 race dominance to put you so far ahead that nobody can catch you. I mean, the texter is right. There were points in the season where there's like 3-4 races to go, and somebody had walked away with the championship. It was already decided. It was over. But there were also lots of seasons where it wasn't. And it all came down to the last race or two. And that's really compelling. And I don't understand why they got rid of a really compelling system for a convoluted system.
Yeah, their system is essentially, let's put everyone in a blender and see which one the blender spits out. And it'll be exciting because no one's going to have any clue who's going to win. But it's lame. And it's not crowning the best driver. And it's random. You got crappy drivers in your playoff who had one good week when everyone crashed in front of them. It doesn't even make any sense. All right, guys. So here we go. We, next week, are going to be getting our first, we call it a non-sports bracket, but it very much is a sports bracket. All right? And what we are attempting to do in this first sports bracket, and we're going to have a segment on this today and a segment on this tomorrow. Here are your 2 chances to get your nominees in. What we are doing is we are putting together a bracket of 32 athletes from upstate South Carolina. Okay? As defined by, you guys let me know, does upstate include Rock Hill or does it not? as defined by, for the most part, Anderson County, Pickens County, Spartanburg County, Greenville County. That is our 4-county metro area, okay? Athletes from the upstate. Who is the upstate's favorite athlete? All right? And I want to know from you your nominations. Now, what I need from you is this, okay? When you nominate somebody, I want it to be, in your mind, this is how I want you to do it. Somebody that just has to be included. Because if we get to Monday or Tuesday and we begin with voting, and inevitably this happens, somebody's going to text us with something like, your whole list is null and void if you don't have this athlete in there. What am I going to say? I'm going to say, where were you on Thursday or Friday when we did the nominations? Okay? Assuming we get well more than 40 nominations, and between the different methodologies that we receive, emails, texts, tweets, I'm going to ask the folks on YouTube to also text theirs in so I have them in one place on the text line as well. We're going to get a lot of nominations here, okay? A lot of them. But I want the person from you that has to be included on this list.
And you please explain to us in a concise but thorough enough way why they should be on this list. If you just throw a name out there, we may not know who that person is. You got to give us the why, and we need you to be specific and accurate. Don't say so-and-so ran for 1,000 yards in 1982 when really they only ran for 700 or 400 or whatever. You know, you got to be accurate. You have to know why you're nominating a person, not just because you like them or they went to your high school. Please be accurate. Please be specific. And please be thorough enough that we can use that information to determine if this person actually does deserve to be in the bracket.
Yeah, 100%, guys. That's how we want you to do it.
Texter here just says David Pearson. Now, I know who David Pearson is. He was in NASCAR. Great. But why? Why?
Yeah, like, guys, give us your nominations, okay? 71307. What athlete, who are the athletes that need to be included in the Upstate's favorite athlete list? You guys will vote when we have the bracket of 32. And then we will have winners advance in the bracket. We're going to build it up. I happen to find a list from Sports Illustrated, the 50 greatest sports figures from South Carolina. Happen to find a list from this, okay? And it's fascinating to me. And so here are some of the names on the list. Al Rosen, Betsy Rawls, George Webster, Marcus Lattimore, Shoeless Joe Jackson, Pete Maravich, Jim Rice, Kevin Garnett, Larry Nance, Stanley Morgan, Steve Fuller, Tony Rice, William Perry, and Willie Aikens. You know, and I was going through this list and I was like, how many of these guys are actually from the Upstate, right? How many are from the Upstate? Well, Shoeless Joe Jackson is. Pete Maravich is, right? Betsy Rawls is. David Pearson won 105 NASCAR races. He is. Jim Rice, isn't he a Hall of Famer now in MLB? He is from Anderson, South Carolina. Al Rosen, all-star third baseman 4 times from Spartanburg, South Carolina. Kevin Garnett is from Malden. Half the people in Malden still claim Kevin Garnett, half do not. Larry Nance is from Anderson County. But now we kicked this around earlier in the year when we were trying to decide which direction we wanted to go. We ended up really liking 2 different ideas, so we're going to go with the Upstate's favorite athlete. That's going to be our first bracket of the year. Then we're going to go with America's team. America's team will probably be 16 finalists, and the Upstate's favorite athlete will probably be 32. But we need your nominations, okay? Who has got to be in the bracket? Qualifications are they're simply from the Upstate. They're from here, okay? They're from here. They grew up here. They went to school here, high school here, right? Do they have to be born here? I don't know. Whatever the qualifications you have for somebody being from here, right? from South Carolina, and from upstate South Carolina. Who is that? 71307 on the text line is where to get to us on the show. Spur Daddy says Marcus Lattimore, Burns legend and Gamecock star running back, did a lot for the Duncan community. He is from Michigan. J. Todd says Shoeless Joe Jackson has the highest career batting average of all time in MLB history and is simply required to be on this list. David Pearson won 3 championships. No other athlete has that many championships in any single sports. Texter says, I nominate Rob Brown and Lonzo for their bowling prowess. Or how about anything but that, Texter?
Well, they came in second and fourth today. I came in first. Lonzo finished second.
No way.
Mark finished third.
No way.
And Rob finished fourth.
No way. No way. And Diesel is massively in the full of it category today. He's got his master's degree.
Hey, I had a game that was 10 points higher than yours. Maybe I should be on this thing.
Maybe you should. Texter says, who's finishing second to Marcus Lattimore? Texter says Josh Norman from Greenwood is very involved in that community with education.
How about Armani Edwards? He had 3 national championships and a Walter Payton Award.
From where?
Greenwood.
Is Greenwood the upstate?
Yeah, Greenwood's the upstate.
I need help here, Diesel, because I'm not, I've been here 4 years.
It's like an hour from here.
Is that the upstate? Is an hour from here still the upstate?
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Does
Greenwood hell, it could take you an hour to get on the other side of Greenville some days,
It could. It could. Stephen Davis from the NFL and Anthony Simmons, the NFL from Spartanburg, South Carolina, a texter says. Greenwood. Diesel, is Armani Edwards your official nominee?
Yes.
Do you want to think about that?
Yes. Texters decide, is Greenwood, does it count? Does Greenwood count as part of the upstate? Can I nominate Armonte Edwards?
Armonte Edwards from the upstate. Who is the upstate's favorite athlete? Folks, we're going to have a ton of fun with this. There's going to be a big-time bracket that we have up on this. We're going to have matchups every single day. You're going to vote. We're going to announce the winners the next day. As we do, we're going to see how this whole thing unfolds. We're going to see if there's going to be a recency bias or if we're going to truly honor the history of this era. I got to be real with you. On the outside looking in, okay, I don't know how anybody but Shoeless Joe Jackson or Pete Maravich could win this thing. I don't know. Like in terms of being absolutely the very best at what they do, how could either of those two guys not win? But then again, my vote counts no differently than any of yours does, right? Like our votes count the same. So depending on the love, does the love for Marcus Lattimore in the upstate, it's not the upstate's best athlete, it's the upstate's favorite athlete. Might Marcus Lattimore have a chance to win in a tournament on the upstate's favorite athlete over Shoeless Joe Jackson, over Pete Maravich, whose greatness is undeniable? Undeniable. And this is where it gets good. We are getting a lot of different nominees from a lot of different folks here on the text line right now. And that is what we want, my friends. We'll keep it right here. Your nominees for the upstate's favorite athlete bracket coming your way next, right here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Fantastic to have you guys with us. Truly do appreciate you making us part of your afternoon. So here's what I'm going to do, guys. Your nominations, as they keep coming in, we're going to look at your explanations. We're going to put these names down on paper. When we have more than 32 nominations, what we are going to do is we are going to whittle those down to 32. Do not assume that somebody said a name, okay? Do not assume that, because if you assume, the saying is you make an ass out of you and me, then you're going to be saying, oh my God, Mark, how is Kevin Garnett not in this bracket? Well, did you nominate him? If you didn't nominate him, you have no right to complain, right?
Spur Daddy asks, can I nominate more than one person? The answer to that question is yes.
You can. You most certainly can. It's like the people who complain that don't vote, right? It's like, can you really complain if you didn't vote in the process at all? So just the only thing I ask of you is, we're doing nominations today. We're doing nominations tomorrow, okay? You have your chance anytime during today's show, during tomorrow's show, to get the person that has to be in the bracket for the Upstate's favorite athlete on the air, okay, into the bracket and included. Do not complain if they're not in the bracket when the bracket begins if you didn't nominate them beforehand. Because what inevitably is going to happen, as what's happened in all of our brackets, is these things get really big. These things get really popular. As they begin to reach more and more people who may not be daily listeners of the show, more and more people start to say, you know, any list that doesn't have so-and-so is null and void. But you didn't nominate them. You didn't nominate them. To nominate them, you need to be here now. You need to be texting in now. Those of you who are listening live and in real time have a chance to set the stage for the bracket that is about to rock the Upstate. And it is the Upstate's favorite athletes. Athletes that are from upstate South Carolina, okay? That's the criteria. Who's the favorite athlete from the Upstate? You'll notice when we did the Upstate's favorite restaurant, we didn't say the best restaurant. We said the favorite restaurant. When we did the Upstate's favorite bar, we didn't say the Upstate's best bar. We said the favorite bar. If you're going by Michelin stars or, you know, what a food critic might say, Paul's Chop House would probably win a lot of those awards.
You can just send it all down to a rating, and then and there's no real argument here.
Right. That's it. But this is the Upstate's favorite athlete, where Marcus Lattimore might have a chance to beat Betsy Rawls, Pete Maravich, Shoeless Joe Jackson. So who do you nominate? Texter says Willie Korn. Texter says Debo Samuel. He's been a great influence for the Inman area, and we've all seen what he can do on the field. I know most of us in Inman love him. Texter says Diesel, Armonte Edwards won 2 Walter Payton Awards. He is the only one to accomplish that back-to-back. Brian Bishop from Spartanburg. Forgot to put that part in. Let's see here. I'm from Greenwood, and I now live in Spartanburg, and I have always considered Greenwood to be the Upstate. Stephen Davis, Spartanburg High School legend, and had a decent NFL career. So says Sam from Spartanburg. Is DeAndre Hopkins from the Upstate? He has been nominated on this list. Stephen Davis, Anthony Simmons, Marcus Lattimore again, Josh Norman, Clyde Mays, David Pearson, Shoeless Joe Jackson, Marcus Lattimore, David Pearson. You see how this is working. You see some of the names that are coming in. 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us on the show. We are taking your nominations. We are putting these nominations together. Next week, we are beginning our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket. And my friends, we are taking your nominations today on the show. 71307. Get them in. Call in with your nominations if you'd like. We've got Kelly Ford of K Ford Ratings joining us on the show next. right here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Love seeing all the participation in our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket. Taking your nominations right now on the text line, 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go. And having an ongoing debate here today that will bring our next guest, K Ford Ratings and Kelly Ford. So, Kelly, we're going to talk a lot of college football here with you today. But we're having a pseudo-friendly debate on the show because we had a station outing today, Kelly. And I got to bring you in as an unbiased participant with what went down here. Okay,
Kelly, he's been denied by countless listeners here, and he's just searching for any port in the storm to tell him he's right.
No. There's no.
So don't get sucked into this.
There's nothing to deny about this, Kelly. So we had a bowling game, Kelly, and like I got to play one game. And other guys at the station got to play two.
He didn't get to play one game. He only played one game and then walked away.
Okay, because, Diesel wants to claim this, Kelly, but I'm just telling you what is. Like, no one in our lane got to finish a second game, so we only got to play one game. So in the game I got to play, I beat everyone from our station score. Every single person who played a second game, their score was higher in the second game than it was in the first. Okay? So Diesel has a higher second score than my first score was, but in the game that we all played at the same time, which was everyone's first game, I had the highest score. So who won?
Wow, this is a good one. I think I want to go with equal playing field. Everybody plays one game. You take the score from that game. If I could see a case for averaging. If you play two games, you average the two scores, and then that can be your new total. I don't know if any of the averages would have been higher than yours, Mark, but in the spirit of fairness, I think you just got to go with the one game that everyone played.
But Thank Kelly, you. We never determined how we were going to score this thing before we started. So Mark,
how is that my fault?
So Mark can get one good score, this is exactly what happened, Kelly. This is a 2-hour event. Mark got his one good score and then scurried off to go eat some free food and didn't bother to come back and bowl his second game.
All lies.
So we never said, hey, guys, we're all going to get together. We're all going to bowl one game. First game score is what counts, and then we're done. That's not what happened. High score is what matters here. High score.
Wait a minute. Kelly delivered his verdict, okay? He delivered his verdict.
Yeah, but I didn't get a chance to make my case here.
Kelly, I'll just say this, Kelly. I'm getting blamed for something that is not my fault in this sense. Our lane had 6 people in it, and it takes forever to play with 6 people. Yeah. So anyone in my lane, they shut down the lane in the 6th frame of the second game. So no one even got to finish or play a second game anyway, which I knew was going to happen. So anyway.
Yeah, there was an empty lane right beside his that Mark could have gone to play on, but he chose not to. And now he's blaming the number of players on his lane for the reason why he should be the winner.
Kelly, you deal with numbers and averages for a living, so I'm going to take your verdict as gospel here, and I will retire as the bowling champion of the Fan Upstate. But anyway, buddy, I appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much for doing so. Kelly, is there one narrative in college football entering this 2023 season that is the most baffling to you?
It's a good question. I haven't really thought about it in that specific regard. I will say there's 2 that come to mind just thinking about it off the top. One is Texas, and are they back? People not acknowledging the fact that Texas is bringing back a pretty strong roster. I know the schedule or the results that they've achieved on the field recently haven't been up to what Texas fans would like, and we always have this Texas back, are they back? Numbers once again suggesting they're back. I know we've had some fun with that over the course of the last year or two, Mark. But then also Florida State, there's a lot of hype around Florida State, being an ACC contender, being a college football playoff contender. I think Florida State's going to be a very good football team this year, but they remind me a little bit of NC State last year, where people were talking about NC State being that team that could maybe make a push, win the ACC, and then ultimately make a college football playoff. I think Florida State's probably a little bit better than NC State was a year ago, but I'm still not ready to say that Florida State's going to be a team that's going to be contending for a spot in the college football playoff. So for me, the doubt that people still have in Texas, I understand it, but the numbers suggest maybe otherwise. And then Florida State, a lot of people putting a lot of stock and faith in Florida State. Well, the numbers are saying they're going to be a good team, but I'm not sure they're quite going to be, CFP level caliber.
So, Kelly, is it fair to say that Florida State this year is going to be the Oregon of last year, where they opened up with Georgia, got throttled? Florida State opens up with LSU. I think LSU minus 1.5 might be my favorite bet of all time, especially given the revenge factor that exists in that game. And, do they possibly go down the same route of getting throttled in week one? Then, like, no matter what they do all year, they're sitting there at 9-2 in the ACC, and all anyone remembers, because our memory, we remember the first thing and we remember the last thing. Everyone remembers all year long them just getting throttled against LSU in week one. Does this remind you of Oregon a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. It could. It could very well play out that way. And I'm really looking at week 1 and week 4 for Florida State. They've got LSU neutral site, but it is in Orlando, kind of Florida State's backyard this year. Last year it was LSU's. I know you said the line right now, Mark, is 1. My number's currently, tentatively, like LSU by about 5.5 in that game. Then they get Southern Miss and at Boston College, 2 games Florida State should win. But that week 4 game, they've got to go to Clemson. And my numbers right now, like Clemson in that game by about 6 points. Florida State could easily be 2-2. They have a week 5 bye. So they could be week 6 of the season, and they could be sitting there at 2-2. That's very different than if they're sitting there at 3-1 maybe, or if they're able to find a way to win both of those hard games 4-0. Okay, now I'm buying into the Florida State CFP hype, because you look at the remainder of their schedule outside of the game at Florida in the final week of the regular season. My numbers are going to like Florida State by nearly a touchdown, if not more, in every other game that they played this year. So yes, they could be a parallel to Oregon and what happened last year. Florida State's season, in my opinion, going to be defined in the first 4 weeks.
What do your numbers say about Clemson this year? I see them in your preseason poll, sitting here at number 8, Kelly. And I am just curious, what are the odds that Clemson makes a run to the college football playoff?
So Clemson is a team that has, over the course of the last decade, really built up kind of a benefit of the doubt, if you will, within a mathematical model. They are performing, they're recruiting and performing at a level that is going to give them a benefit of a doubt and an expectation that they're going to, quote, bounce back after a down year. And I think we've seen recently Clemson not be at that peak level. We've talked before about maybe have they fallen a half step behind the elite programs in college football. The numbers are still giving Clemson the benefit of the doubt. They finished last year power rated number 10 in my power rating set. And I know we can go back and forth about the merits of that. That's the reality of where they were. Outside of that, 2021, they finished 9th. But before that, they hadn't finished any worse than 5th since 2014. So this is a Clemson team that we're expecting to progress back to the mean here. I think it's going to be a really strong defense. The offense, certainly want to see what it looks like with Klubnik there. But relative to the competition faced in the ACC, my numbers expect Clemson to be the strongest team in that conference, a 9% chance to go 12-0 in the regular season. Most difficult games, the game at home to Notre Dame in week 10. Clemson favored by about 4 right now by my numbers. And then we already talked about it, that week 4 game when Clemson welcomes in Florida State. So 2 of the most difficult games for Clemson, their benefit this year is they are playing those at home. Yeah, I think Clemson can bounce back. I think my numbers suggest they will bounce back. There's a 64% chance of winning 10 plus games. This is a Clemson team that I think should find itself back in the ACC championship game. And if they are able to get through that with 1 or fewer losses, they'll be right back in the CFP.
Kelly Ford joining us on the show. Kelly, I want to make a comparison here between Florida and South Carolina and where you have these 2 teams slotted, because I got to be real with you, Kelly. I think Florida bottoms out this year, and I'm a Florida grad. And I picked up the Athlon College Football Preview magazine. It has Florida 49th. It has South Carolina 31st. It says the Gamecocks finished 7-5. The Gators finished 5-7. It's like their riders are inside my brain with how I see this season going. And you have Florida 18th in the country, but admittedly with a very hard schedule. And Kelly, I don't even know where you have South Carolina because they're not on your top 30 page. Why does your model perceive Florida to be better than the Gamecocks, especially when you consider the quarterback discrepancy between those 2 schools?
Yeah, I will say that Florida has definitely been the team that has generated for me probably the most buzz and malcontent with where they are. And I fully admit the model has blind spots, and the model's going to miss on teams. It's going to underestimate some, overestimate some. Florida maybe is a team that I'm overestimating and the model is thinking too highly of. I think it's more likely that I'm pretty close on Florida and the overall talent that they have, but their record at the end of the year won't reflect that of a top 25 team because they do play the most difficult schedule in all of college football by my numbers. So when we're looking at Florida's preseason rating here and their power rating being 18th in the country, we have to remember what I'm incorporating into the model in the preseason, and that's your returning production, your recent recruiting, and your recent K Ford ratings. Those three areas relative to the rest of college football, Florida's grading out pretty well, actually. And on the flip side, South Carolina, a team maybe not grading out as well in those areas here in the preseason. But as we talked about before, there are things that the model cannot account for. And it would seem that all the intangibles, all of the things that a model can't measure surrounding the South Carolina program are all moving as one great synergy in the right direction. And therefore, they are a candidate to overachieve expectations set by a mathematical model. So that's really the difference, I think, between the two of those. It's going to be a very interesting game. My numbers currently like Florida in week 7 at South Carolina by 3.5 points. Again, we'll see what that looks like when I finish the updates to the roster compositions in mid-August. And then, of course, they'll be changing again weekly once building up to that game mid-season. But for now, I'm higher on Florida. I understand the quarterback situation. The numbers aren't that concerned, to be completely honest with you about that. We'll see if they're right or wrong. Again, it's a really difficult schedule for Florida. South Carolina, though, has the number 2 most difficult schedule in the entire country. So you're looking with two teams that have incredibly difficult schedules. It's going to be hard to get wins this year. My number's 56% chance South Carolina goes bowling, but they overachieved last year. I'm curious to see if they can do it again.
Clemson at South Carolina. Palmetto Bowl. The rematch. Can South Carolina make it 2 in a row? What does your model say?
I would say that South Carolina absolutely can make it 2 in a row. I remember being on the show last year in advance of that game, and the numbers like Clemson to win it. South Carolina coming off a great win against Tennessee carried that momentum forward. Right now, as things stand, South Carolina currently projecting is about a 9.5 point underdog at home. It's a 25% chance to win for South Carolina, so a 1 in 4 chance. Again, the preseason data that we're looking at here is going to favor a program like Clemson, who has performed and recruited at the level that they have recently, versus a program like South Carolina, who by every indication is trending upward and is on the right path. Just not quite sure that this is the year they've arrived. They might be one more year away, at least from a number standpoint. But 9.5 right now is the number for that game at the end of the year.
Basically, just about a double-digit underdog are the Gamecocks at home against Clemson, 9.5 points and 25% chance to win. Gamecock fans, are you going over or under that 25% chance to win mark playing at home? Where do your numbers say the Gamecocks are overall, Kelly?
Yeah, so nationally, Mark, we've got South Carolina currently power rated number 38. The offense is a top 25 unit, got them number 24 currently. The concern for me is on the defensive side of the ball. This is a unit that's currently power rated 63rd nationally, so that's FBS average. Of course, when you look at it within the SEC East, that's in the lower quartile there. And again, we've got to remember, this is an incredibly difficult schedule. When we aggregate the offenses that South Carolina is going to face this year, it is the 12th most difficult combined aggregate set of offenses that any team in the entire country is going to face. And it's the 10th most difficult aggregate combined set of defenses that any team in the country is going to face. So it's not just when you're looking at my win totals and projections for South Carolina's record. South Carolina is a very, very good football team. And they're, like I said, they're trending in the right direction. The problem, at least in the view of my numbers right now, is that the difficulty of opponents that they're facing on both sides of the ball is just really, really high. And that's going to make it difficult for South Carolina to win games. But they surprised me last year at the end of the year. I had to eat that, own that. And I'm sure the fans down there in the upstate are like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's discounted us last year. He's doing it again. And that's what I'm here for. Provide some billboard material for some South Carolina fans, I guess. They certainly let me hear it. And last year they were right to. We'll see if they're able to do it again this year.
It's interesting. What is the most likely 4-team playoff according to your model, Kelly Ford?
Yeah, the most likely 4-team playoff right now for me, and my numbers aren't designed to try to predict who's going to be in the playoff. However, using the predictive nature of it, we're looking at Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, and Michigan as the 4 teams most likely to make the college football playoff by my numbers. I'm trying to pause for just 1 second as I pull up the graphic here on my phone. So I've got Georgia right now with a 63% chance, Ohio State 54%, Alabama 39%, Michigan 33%. USC comes in next. Clemson is currently 6th on my list of college football playoff contenders coming into this year based on my current version of numbers right now.
Kelly Ford joining us here on the show this afternoon. Kelly, what do you make? My concern is, and, you know, whereas we've debated, Kelly, so many folks in and around the sport, expanding the playoff, good or bad for the sport. Diesel loves it. I'm more on the fence. On my pros and cons list, Kelly, I have about as many cons as I do pros. So it's kind of like 6 in one, a half dozen in the other for me. My concern is that, you know, with a 12-team playoff, and then especially with all the consideration going to 9 conference games that all these leagues are discussing right now, what is any incentive at all to have Florida State play LSU again, to have Oregon play Georgia, or Florida play Utah? It seems dumb to do that in a 12-team playoff era where you've got to go 10-2 to make the college football playoff. The Kentucky model of, you know, playing the all cupcakes league in your non-conference seems to be what gives you the best shot.
Yeah, I am on record and pretty adamant and vocal with my opposition to expansion of the playoff. I don't think it's healthy for the sport as a whole. I think it will generate more revenue, which is why it's happening. And so I made my peace with that. But I think you're right, Mark. I think what we're doing, in my opinion, by expanding the playoff, what I love about college football is the regular season. It's the best regular season in sports, and nothing you can say or do changes my mind on that. What we're doing is we are eliminating, as you said, some of the incentive to schedule some big-time non-conference games during the regular season. And what we're also doing to the big games that we have in the regular season is, in my opinion, we are devaluing some of the games with the greatest stakes in the current environment. And those stakes are lessened significantly because in many instances, the winner and loser of the game is still in a position to make the college football playoff. As a trade-off for that, what you're doing is adding in more games, especially late in the year, that have increased significance. I won't say the stakes are super high, but they now have a little bit more at stake because playoff berths, because there's more of them. There are more to be had and more teams are in that mix. So for me, I don't like taking the highest stake games that we have now and diminishing the value of those, even though what we are getting is more mid-level games, which as a college football diehard, you're already excited about. It's already important to you, your team, your fan base. Now you're just throwing in the added mix of, oh, well, there could be a playoff spot on the line. We could sneak in as an at-large here. But yeah, I agree with you in terms of what we're going to see in non-conference, highly prolific games. And it's a shame to me, but I understand why it's happening. I mean, I work in college athletics. I get it. I still don't like it, but I'm going to enjoy 2023 for sure, our final year of a 4-team playoff.
Kelly, we'll close with this. A couple texters. Tell Mr. Ford that Coach Beamer says, hold my beer, based on your prediction last year, Kelly Ford. And another texter says, does your model take special teams into consideration because South Carolina won games on that unit last year?
Yes. I love the Shane Beamer thing. And yes, that's a great question. It does. Special teams is weighted significantly less, of course, than offense or defense. However, I do have special team ratings. I have not published those publicly. And I also have not shared what the weighting of those are, but special teams is a factor. I will say South Carolina has, in the model right now, graded out very well on special teams, again, relative to competition in recent years. So they are getting a bump in that regard. You can point to games here or there where special teams will win it. And you look at a team like Iowa last year, who between their defense and special teams did win games. The reality is that over the course of all 133 FBS teams, special teams, the importance and effect that special teams has is not that great. But for certain teams in certain years, that importance is inflated. And I do think South Carolina's seen a little bit of that recently. So I think it's a great question. And yes, rest assured it is in there, just not given the same level of weight as, offense and defense.
Kelly Ford, K Ford ratings, always really, really interesting stuff. I feel smarter every time we talk to you, Kelly. Thanks so much for making the time.
I appreciate it, Mark. Appreciate you and Diesel. Sorry I couldn't be more help on the bowling, but I look forward to next time.
We appreciate it, buddy. We've got the top 5 at 5 next, right here on Offsides, the Fan Upstate. Good, my friends. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. There are a ton of sports media options out there. I cannot thank you enough for making us part of your day. Each and every day means the world to Diesel and I. Got a jam-packed 5 o'clock hour for you and a ton going on the show today. I love shows where it feels like you got like 30 different balls in the air, and that's what today feels like on the show. So let's get right to it. Let's get you, favorite word in the English dictionary, abreast of the situation that's going on. Do you guys realize I stopped the end of my first year of teaching was 5 years ago today. 5 years ago today. You got that Facebook memory that popped up today, and I had posted a video on my last day of school, and I looked like the most exhausted I ever was in my life. I had mono. School had ended. You're at school until 9 p.m. every day, and teaching was simultaneously the most challenging and rewarding experience of my life. But I want to thank you guys so much for bringing me here and bringing me back to my passion. And as a small aside, to this, me leaving the school served as a motivating factor for the kids that I taught. I got the sense so many of them have reached out in the years that followed. And it wasn't, I never got a vibe of Mr. Ryan left us. What I got is the vibe that, Mr. Ryan, you always instilled belief in us. You told us that we weren't stuck here, which was a very poor suburb of Houston, that these kids, a lot of the parents don't ever get out of that area. And they told me, you've instilled a lot of belief in us that we could get out of this area and we could pursue our passion. And then their teacher did that very thing, right? Their teacher taught them how to perform. And then I got the job that I wanted. I got to leave and do my dream, just like I always told them that if they bust their hump, they can leave the area and do their dream as well. And that year wrapped up 5 years ago today. And I thank you guys so much for having me out here. Let's get to that jam. We call it the Top 5 at 5, the top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstate, Offsiders, the Top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the Top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Diesel, before we hit it, so we went to the Spartanburg, the Heritage Park Fair at Simpsonville over the weekend, right? And I rode those swings that go 5,000 feet in the air, and they swing you up and down and all around, and I'm never doing that again. And, you and I lament a lot of the time that, I've heard you say a number of times, Diesel, that we are not rich, right? I've heard you say that a number of times. But Angela, when we were at the fair, she said, babe, you need to tack on $10,000 to your salary because of all of these perks that you get as part of your job.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? That's fair, right? We get concerts and we get days and afternoons at spare time, and we get all these passes to the fair and all of these entertainment dollars that you and I and everyone else everyone else has to spend out of their money. When's the last time you paid to go to a sporting event, Diesel?
Well, I paid to go to a Braves game a couple of years ago. I paid to go to a concert in Asheville last week, but it's rare. It's rare when we have to. There is a lot. There's some perks there. That is for sure. And of course, we got to throw our appreciation out to Roy Hummers in our promotions department for all the relationships he's forged that make it possible for us to request those things.
It was a great time. It was a great time today. We were at Spare Time Entertainment earlier today. More on that coming. The Top 5 at 5. Hit it.
5.
At number 5 today. Folks, the reality is I'm being real with you. I'm making myself vulnerable. When Florida State is pounding Florida in football, my self-confidence is a little bit lower. Just being honest with you. Therefore, the show is not going to be as good if Florida State goes on a run where they're beating Florida every single year. It affects my self-confidence. It shouldn't, but my perspective and my priorities are not fully in line. Okay, way too much depends on Florida's success in college football. So I ask you guys this question. Whatever side of your favorite rivalry you're on, Diesel's rivalry is Appalachian State, Georgia Southern. Many of you are on Clemson and South Carolina. If the rivalry were to shift in terms of who wears the belts in the relationship, who runs the state, how would that affect your life, right? How is your life different when Spurrier won 5 in a row as Gamecocks coach? Because I wasn't around for that. Is your life less sunny? Is it more depressed? Do you lose self-confidence? Do you miss more days at work when your team stinks? Because if I were to ask you guys, what are your 3 biggest passion points in life? If you're listening to this show, there is a very good chance that number 1 is God, number 2 is your family, and number 3 is either Clemson or South Carolina. So if this flipped, let's say Beamer wins 3 in a row in the rivalry, or 3 out of 5, which meets my criteria for being the better program, running the state. How would that change your life?
There'd be no joy in Mudville, where Mudville is Clemson, South Carolina.
Yeah. If you are a Gamecock fan, how would running the state change your life? If you are a Clemson fan, how would the Gamecocks running the state again change your life? Let us know. 71307 on the text line. Phone line is there for you, 844-326-3663. Next up.
4.
All right, at number 4 today, I owe you guys an apology. And I owe you an apology because a couple of weeks ago, we did this segment on all the pitfalls of NASCAR, why they've gone from 20 million people watching the Daytona 500 to 6 million people watching it. What are the solutions to it? Where did they go off the rails? And I think I missed the biggest problem with what they're doing. Their point system that I studied today is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. All right? Folks, in order to make the playoffs in NASCAR, which you shouldn't really have playoffs in a racing league, right? It's NASCAR's attempt to try to be like another typical American sports, right? But what they do is, if you win a race, a single race, you're essentially grandfathered into the playoff of 16 racers at the end of the year. You got 26 races. If you have 16 different racers win those 26 racers, there's your playoff. So in effect, it doesn't reward consistency at all. You could win one race, suck in the other 25, and you're in the playoff. You could be sucking in the race that you win and have everyone crash in front of you. You win a race, you stink the rest of the year, and then you're in the playoff. And I use the example of when we hire here at the Fan Upstate, everyone wants to send you a highlight reel. And I don't give a rip about a highlight reel. Everybody's got a good 5 minutes on the air. What I wanted to know is, hey, what time is your show? Okay, I'm not going to tell you when I'm going to listen, but I'm going to listen. And I would listen on like a random Tuesday at 11 a.m., right? I would see what they sounded like when they didn't know I was tuned in. Because that tells me the day in, day out, consistently the work that you're doing. I don't care about a highlight reel. I don't care about you being good one time in 26 races. I want to know, are you consistently good week in and week out? Right? And if you are, you're a good sports talk show host. And if you are, you're a good NASCAR driver. Right? Those are the criteria. I think this is the dumbest point system I've ever heard in my life. You need to reward drivers that finish a second a bunch of times, have a bunch of top 10 finishes. Like, that needs to matter. And in the NASCAR point system, it doesn't. And that's why it's gotten kind of like the Looney Tunes cartoonish vibe attached to it. over the recent seasons. Next up,
3.
NBA Finals tonight, Denver and Miami. Miami might be getting Tyler Hero back in about game 3 of this series. Will he be playing hero ball? Miami was the lowest scoring team in the NBA this year, making it a shock that they made it all the way to the NBA Finals. And that's another reason that their presence is a shock, not just that they are an 8 seed. It's so easy to root for Miami, but I would argue that you really have 2 beautiful underdog stories here. Denver was the number 1 seed in the NBA Western Conference, long regarded as the best of the conferences in the NBA. They've been the number 1 seed since December 20th. Okay? Season starts in late October. Since December 20th, they've been the number 1 seed. And yet, a month and a half ago, you ask anybody who's going to win the finals, who's going to win the West, not a single person except this guy right here, yours truly, picked Denver to do it. I think they have the best player in the NBA in Nikola Jokic. I think they have the superb wing that you need in Jamal Murray. And then I think they have the athletic wild card in Michael Porter Jr. to go along with role players all around them. I think this is Denver's year. I think they're just too good and too dominant, and I don't think any magnificent Eric Spoelstra system can beat them. I think it's a competitive series. I think Denver wins. Give me the Nuggets in 6. And I love to see both an underdog Miami team thrive and a team that no one gave a chance to, Denver. They were an underdog to the Lakers. When the playoffs began, the Golden State Warriors and the Phoenix Suns had better odds than they did out of the West. Shame on all these people, man. You slept on the team that was the best wire to wire in the NBA. Next up.
2.
All right. Number 2 on the show today. We are beginning nominations for our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket. Here are the criteria. We are going to put together 32 of the best athletes ever to come from the Upstate. And then you're going to vote on the matchups to crown the Upstate's favorite athletes. Favorite athlete means that Marcus Lattimore could win, even though on the professional level, he didn't accomplish what a Pete Maravich and Shoeless Joe Jackson did, also from the Upstate of South Carolina. We're taking your nominations right now. We're going to do this today. We're going to do this tomorrow. The bracket begins next week. I want no excuses if you fail to nominate the person that you think desperately needs to be in this bracket. Who's got to be included, right? Who must be in the Upstate's favorite athlete bracket? Some of the names we have gotten thus far: Al Rosen, Armonte Edwards, Betsy Rawls, George Webster, Marcus Lattimore, Shoeless Joe Jackson, Pistol Pete Maravich, Jim Rice, Kevin Garnett, Larry Nance, Stanley Morgan, Steve Fuller, Tony Rice, William Perry, Willie Aikens. Who do you nominate to be in our bracket? 2 days of nominations, then we'll get going. No excuses. Your chance to nominate is right now. And finally,
1.
All right, so this has been a ton of fun, man. We had a station event today at Spare Time Entertainment in Greenville, and it was a freaking blast. And Diesel and I have a little debate going on the show today. So we all played a game, right? And after we all played a game, I had the highest score among the group, right? Then I did not play a second game, and Diesel and Lonzo and Rob did. And Diesel's second score, by the way, everyone's second game score was higher than the first game. I did not play a second game.
Not Rob's. Rob's score went down in his second game.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He bowled like a 142 or something in his first game. Like he just walked in off the street and bowled a 142. And Rob's funny, man. He prefaced this. He told like 6 people, yeah, I haven't touched a bowling ball in like 6 months. I just want to let everybody know. I just want everybody to know that I haven't bowled in a while. You know, he's building in the excuses before the game even starts, and then he walks in and rolls a 145. That's not great in the grand scheme of things, but you know, it's not bad.
Diesel, I can do you one better. I hadn't touched a bowling ball in at least 10 years. Okay. And I walked in off the street and I bowled 156. So when we were all bowling at the same time, I beat everyone at the Fan Upstate. I did not play a second game. Diesel, Rob, and Lonzo did play a second game. Diesel's score in the second game was higher than my high score in the first game.
10 points higher, to be exact.
Okay.
166.
10 points higher. So, you know, under the pretense that you score better in the second game than you do the first because you're warmed up, Diesel got a higher score. So the question is, who won? Am I the winner because when we were all playing, I had the highest score? Am I the winner because if you average Diesel's two scores together and put it to my 156, I have the highest average score?
What's funny about this, Mark, is I even said out loud, quote, to your face, look, Mark just got a high score, so he's going to walk away and not play again. And then you did exactly that.
So Diesel's
because I know you.
Diesel's assertion is that I walked away because of the high score, but the reality is I knew we weren't going to have time because we had 6 people in our bloody lane, and I was right. They didn't finish their second game. So does Diesel win because he had the overall high score, even though he played 2 games and I only played 1? Or did I win because I won the game that everyone played together, and I had the highest average score of the bowlers? That is the dispute, my friends. That is the dispute. Let us know what you think. And those are today's top 5 at 5.
Bad Craft is having a blast at this.
Those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. The text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go. You can get to us on Facebook and Twitter as well, at the Fan Upstate, at Diesel on Radio, at Mark Ryan on Air. That's at MARC Ryan on Air, and invite you to subscribe to us on YouTube via the Fan Upstate there. And finally, you can email the show, Mark Ryan, MARC Ryan, at thefanupstate.com. All the different ways you can get in touch with us here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere.
Now, Mark, if the people speak and you do not win this debate, are you going to accept their ruling?
No
okay,
way.
So then what does it matter?
No, yeah, it's just a fun debate, Diesel. It's a fun debate. So Joey says you get points for winning individual games and total pins. Joey, I didn't get a chance to play a second game, and that's the part that Diesel disputes.
Mark, there was like 10 empty lanes. If you wanted to play another game, you could have played another game, but you didn't. You just walked away.
But like, what is total points? Like, I've never even heard of that.
So if total points, I definitely won.
Right, because you played a second game.
Yeah, well, that's your fault.
In terms of average
score. You quit halfway through the race.
In terms of average score, quit.
Yeah.
We played a game together. I won the game.
We didn't play a game together. We played games on different lanes. We didn't play a game together.
So like every time, ladies and gentlemen, that I shot my bowling ball, Diesel was right next to me shooting his bowling ball. Like practically every single time. And I beat him head to head. Mano a mano.
This isn't where we accidentally wore the same outfit and then we're like ebony and ivory over here. This was you were playing with 5 other players.
Right.
And it was Rob and I, and then occasionally Steve Senecroppy would jump in with his awesome bowling shirt that had little lobsters all over it. And like, so we were bowling faster because we had 3 players, you had 6. So we would come up and be bowling at the same time every other turn for you.
And I saw Diesel start out really cold and get a little bit warmer as it goes along. But Diesel's second game, I mean, I was in another room. I might as well have been on another planet at that point when Diesel's
you were 10 feet away.
Second game was alleged to have taken place.
Where did you go?
Checking out the whole place, man. You know,
you've never been there before?
No, I've never
Spare
been
time's
there.
amazing.
It's amazing. That place is incredible. So anyway, there you go.
Ooh, Spur Daddy wants to know John Edward Kruger nominated him, but I don't think this counts. He nominated Connor Shaw.
I mean, is he from here?
No, he's according to Spur Daddy, he's from Georgia.
No.
Yeah, it doesn't count.
No.
John Edward Kruger.
No,
It's got to be a player from here.
No,
it's not just a player who played in the Upstate a few times or played their college ball at a school in the Upstate. It's got to be an athlete from the Upstate.
Yeah, that's true.
Lived here for a significant amount of time. 3 to 4 years in college doesn't mean you lived here for a significant amount of time.
All right, coming up next on the show, what is the best movie ever made about your profession? That's next. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
Stream, it has been a blast today. Thank you all for helping us. Well, we're not really going to decide this because Mark is not going to abide by anything that you say. He's going to ask your opinion on it, and then he's going to say, screw your opinion. I don't care what you think anyway. So we're never really going to come to an answer on this, but everybody knows scoreboard matters. And Mark has said on the show many times before, scoreboard matters. And then when scoreboard doesn't favor him, he's like, scoreboard doesn't matter. We're going to change the rules and go over here and do this. This is the same guy who wants to eliminate bank shots in basketball. You know, you can't trust anything this guy has to say.
Diesel claims scoreboard to a game I wasn't playing. You know what I mean? So how can you claim?
It's not my fault.
Playing, I won.
You could have moved over and played on our lane, but you didn't.
We threw it to our guest.
We're never going to agree on this.
Person, Kelly Ford, and Kelly Ford says you got to go with the game that you all were playing. But guys, look, everyone loves to root for the underdog. It's okay to root for Diesel. Everyone loves to root for the underdog. So I accept your root for the underdog. I root for the underdog all the time. All right?
See, texter here. Diesel won. You quit, Mark. Let's see. Diesel wins. In bowling, you get points for winning individual games and for total pins.
What did Kelly Ford say?
You got democracy is winning. There's more people saying I win than people saying that you win. So you know what? You lost. It's fine. Hey, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks for joining the stream today. We'll be back tomorrow.